Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm Todd Nesloney, your host. I'm the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership for TEPSA in Texas. Each week, I seek to bring you a different guest who has inspired, encouraged, or challenged me in one way or another, and have them share a piece of their story with you in hopes that it helps you be brave enough to tell some of your story. I am thrilled this week to have my special guest and friend, Daisy Marino on. Daisy, thank you so much. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are?
Hey, everybody. I am Daisy Marino. I am a wife to my husband, Frank. I am a mom to my two kids, Maverick and Maggie. We have one dog, Megatron. I am an assistant principal at a small town in Southeast Texas, and I am a published Christian author.
So you got a lot of stuff going on. So
I've
Daisy,
got a lot of stuff going on.
I want to start with kind of your own career path. Now, you've been in education for a few years now. Is that something you knew you always wanted to do, or did you grow up like always wanting to be a teacher?
So, I think you know Todd, like my faith. I got big faith, and
Mhm.
I truly believe being in an education, whatever form you're in, is a calling from God. And I think in second grade, I knew without a doubt that I was called to be an
Mhm.
educator, and so I've always wanted to be in education. I wanted to be a teacher, and I taught for 9 years. And then through people like you that I was inspired, through on Twitter, Aaron Klein,
Mhm.
several people, I just started seeing things they were doing. So I got real heavy into the technology part of
Mhm.
education. So for 3 years, I was an instructional technologist. And then out of the blue, the assistant principal at my elementary school, the spot came open. I never in a million years wanted to be an administrator. I did not even take the test when I finished my grad school, but I felt God saying do it, and so I did.
Mhm.
And this has been the best job. I love
Aw.
this position. I love being with all the kids. I have a phenomenal principal who loves the kids probably even more than I do, if that's possible. And she's positive, and she's just an amazing leader and awesome to work under. So yeah, that's my story in education. I mean, I really feel like I was called to do this.
That's awesome. Well, you were in the classroom, like you said, you were an instructional coach with technology, and then you move into the administrative role. So you haven't been in the administrative role too long now,
No.
but what do you think was something that you did not already know that you were like when you got in, you were like, oh my gosh, because I know being an administrator, and you can speak to this, and so can your principal, I'm sure. There's so much stuff you have no idea administrators do until you get in it. And as
Yeah.
a teacher, you're always like, oh, I know what they do. Oh, I could do that. Oh, this is this because I was the same way. And
Right.
then after my first year as principal, I was like, I need to go find my old principal and apologize to her because
Yeah.
there's a lot more that goes on than anybody knows about. But what was something that was really surprising to you?
So what prepared me most for this role was I was a varsity cheer sponsor for 10 years.
How
And so if you can be a varsity cheer sponsor, you can do anything. And I mean that with all my heart. And so I think the hardest part going from teacher to admin is when you're a teacher, like that classroom is your world. And
Mhm.
all you see is this little world and your little kids, and you're their advocate. And that's all that matters to you. And I so when you swap over to admin, you have the whole school, and the whole school is your world, and now 430 kids are your world versus 20. And so I think that's the biggest shift.
Yeah.
And I think when you're a teacher in your classroom, you're the role model for your kids. You're their mom for however
Mhm.
many hours a day. And I think when you swap over to admin, like you are mom, or dad, to these kids, but you're also the teacher's person. And so, I mean, you've got to be there for them, and no matter what they're going through. And I think that's, one big adjustment, but I think it's good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Is there something that you've learned about yourself that you weren't expecting to learn through this process?
Um, I think once again, varsity cheer sponsor prepared me for anything. So I think, just that I can do it. And
Mhm.
I'm a super nice person, and I'm very kind. But I think when you step into these roles, the one thing you have to learn to do, and I learned this from the CEO of Hobby Lobby. I heard him speak, and then the CEO of all like the Branson amusement parks.
Hmm.
My husband and I were at a little conference and they both spoke, and they said the most important thing to do is always speak the truth in love. And sometimes speaking the truth is hard, and sometimes it doesn't sound good to your ears
Hmm.
when you're hearing it. So that's probably the hardest part for me.
That's very reflective. I like that, and I
Yeah.
like that advice too. Speak the truth with love.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned at the top of the show that you have also recently published a book, and I'm
Yeah.
so excited for you. I've seen it in different things. Tell me about how that kind of came about. When did that be? When did God lay that on your heart that that was something you wanted to do too?
So this is a crazy story, but in January 2018, I have a prayer journal. I write in it every day, and so I felt strongly God saying, "Pray for April." So I wrote down April, and then the next day I felt pray for April, and I'm like, "April who?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "The month of April," and I'm
Uh-huh.
like, "Okay, that's weird." But so all through my journal, through those few months, you can see me writing April, pray for April, pray for April. So the closer it gets, I'm like getting butterflies, I get
Hmm.
chills, I can feel like something's going to happen. So I just keep praying. I'm praying for April. April 3rd rolls around, and it's in my journal too. This lady contacted me and she was like, "I feel strongly that God's telling me to tell you you need to write a book." She was like, "I know this is crazy. He's been telling me for 6 months. I didn't want you to think I was a weirdo." She was like, "But I just have to tell you, it won't, get off my heart." And so, before that, I post every day on Facebook, kind of like a Christian little inspirational blog, try to lift,
Hmm.
women up. And so I already had the book written. I didn't even know. And so I had like four written, really. And so by the end of April, I had a book deal because she was like, "This is the publisher. You need to use Christian Faith
Hmm.
Publishing." She was like, "Contact them." And it just happened like boom, boom, boom. So I met with her in a coffee shop, and I was just real like, "I can't do this. Like, there's no way." But when I stepped my foot out of the door of the coffee shop, I literally got like three messages from three random women. One was like, "God told me to send you this Bible verse." One told me to tell you whatever you're doing with your daily writings, just be led by Him. And
Hmm.
just all three of them were like that. And I was like, "Okay, I'm really doing this. I'm writing this book."
Hmm.
And it was, I guess, within a year it was published, written. And then I'm like, "Okay, I actually wrote a book and I'm going to get paid." Like, what?
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, "Well, I'm an I already have, I get a paycheck. My husband, like, he gets a paycheck. Like, what can we do with this money? Like,
Right.
we don't need this, for any bills or whatever we have." And I was like, we'll give, this money to if kids need food, if kids need clothes, shoes, because the need. When
Hmm.
you're walking down the hall and you're answering an email on your cell phone, you look down, a kindergarten child has on size 7 shoes. They can't
Hmm.
even walk down the hall.
Right.
It's heartbreaking. And so that's what we started doing, spending that royalty check for kids. And I know you like food like I do, Todd. And so, like, I am super nice. I'm usually in a very happy, positive mood. But if I get hungry,
Uh-huh.
that's when the mood can be altered a little.
Yep.
So I can imagine like these kids that haven't eaten since they left school, like how they feel. And yeah, this is why they're acting out. They're starving. They're mad. I'm mad when I'm hungry. So, that's just how that all kind of shifted and happened.
Well, I love that you're not only speaking of your faith, but you're acting it out, and you're putting your money where your mouth is,
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and just getting to pour back into others. When you were writing this book and putting it all down, even though you felt the signs from God, even though you felt like this was really something you need to do, did you still find yourself struggling with finding your voice or feeling like you
Mhm.
should deserve a book out there? Like, did you find yourself still struggling with that, even though it was so clearly made out to you?
Yes, but I'm telling you, every time like I would get like the doubts,
Hmm.
somebody would message me and I would get some type of confirmation like, and Todd, it may be something like I was contemplating suicide, but I read your little devotional on
Right.
Facebook, and like it drew
Wow.
me into God. And I mean, or, I'm struggling in my marriage, but I mean, people you don't even know's
Yeah.
reading it. And this is what's crazy too. Like sometimes, like I'll write something and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to post this tomorrow. It's going to be awesome. And then I'll wake up and I'll be like, that's not for today. Like, I'm not supposed to post that today. And so, like, a week later, I post it and someone's like, this is exactly what I needed
Wow.
today.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's just, to me, God just has such a hand in it.
Mhm.
And if we listen to him, and stay in prayer and serve him, he's just going to guide us, you
Well,
know?
I love that, that focus is there. And I love that you're so consistently focused on being positive. And,
Right.
that's in even the title of your book, Ray of Sunshine. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just that positivity. And I think when we live in a world like we live in with ours today, where anytime you turn on the TV, open your computer, look at your phone, you're just bombarded with negativity
Yeah.
and destruction and despair. How do you continue to keep that positivity going for yourself? Because I know you've got days where it's like, no, I don't want to get out of bed today, or I'm not in a good mood. I don't have anything to say because I'm angry right now. Or
Yeah. Yeah. I really think it's just, and people ask me about this too. Like, I just stay in constant prayer with God.
Mhm.
Like, I have a big faith. Sometimes I feel like I'm extreme and that people think I'm a weirdo. And, when I started posting on Facebook like my devotionals with a Bible verse, I was like, who am I to do this?
Right.
And just really in my head about it. But I felt strongly about it. I needed to do it. And so sometimes, like, because I'm real big on like girl power and like women can do this. And so sometimes, like, I'll get like, oh, I can't do that. And I'll be like, you better practice what you preach. Like, you're telling all these women that they can do this and that God is going to help them and that God has them. You better remember that God has you. So I just try to remember, I'm telling all these people the faith. I'm trying to live it out loud. I better practice what I preach.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, Daisy, when you look back at your life, I mean, there's a lot of things that, of course, that have happened that have made you the woman you are today. But when you kind of just reflect just briefly, what do you think is something that really played a large part into who you are today?
You know, I think I was called in second grade to be a teacher, but I think, and my husband's story. Once I met him in college,
Mhm.
and I heard his story. I almost feel like his story became my story
Mhm.
because my I still, in 14, 15 years of education, haven't seen a child that probably had like as hard of a raising as my
Right.
husband and his brother and sister did. I mean, it was bad and it was hard, but um, my husband, you can overcome it. And so I think it's important that we remember we can't let poverty as a child or abuse as a child
Mhm.
define who we are
Right.
as adults. And he went on and he was in the army. He got his
Mhm.
associate's degree. He got his bachelor's degree. He has an MBA. He teaches our Sunday school class. He serves in our community. I mean, he does all the youth sports. And so this is, this child that I think, you know, if he were in the school today, most people, adults, would
Mhm.
look at him like he's never going to be anything. But I
Right.
think it's important for us to remember that these kids can be anything, and that whoever this little boy is that may not have anything now, he's going to be somebody's dad one day. He's going to be somebody's husband. And I think that's what we need to look at them as, their
Mhm.
future self, not who they are right now.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it's so important to me too to help these kids get clothes and food, because
Mhm.
that's what teachers did for him.
I
And
love.
so, when I see these little blonde hair, blue eyed boys, I always have the picture of my husband, in the back of my mind. And some adult helped him when his parents couldn't help him.
Mhm.
And one thing that's happened with the book, and I told you, it's not totally, into work yet. It's my lawyer has filed paperwork. Is we're starting a nonprofit, and it's
I
called Rays of
love it.
Sunshine. Yeah, Rays of Sunshine Incorporated, and it will be where we already have a lot of like backers and We're going to ask churches for love offerings and different things like that. So anytime a kid needs food or clothes or shoes, whatever they need, and it doesn't have to be in my school, like it can be in Austin, it can be in Michigan. If any teacher, whoever reaches out to us, we're going to get what these kids need. And I think that's so important. And
Mhm.
like and we're gonna get them shoes that I'd buy my kid, like shoes that feel good, shoes that look good, shoes that are gonna last. And so that's in the works. Hopefully in the next few weeks it'll be legit. We're just waiting on the IRS, you know.
That that is so exciting. And again, one thing that I love about you and your heart and your story is that you're so passionate about that giving back, and
Yeah.
about, we talk about what we've been through, we talk about the kids we serve, we talk about the messages that we send, and it's a different thing to do the talking and
Yeah.
then to give your time, give your
Right.
money, give your heart. And I know not everybody's capable of giving the same thing, and that's not the point. But
Right.
when it's kind of like that, when you're given more, you give more. And
Yeah.
I love that you're doing that. Now, and through some of the stuff that you've been able to give or work with, is there one in particular that really sticks out to you that you're like, that was one of the coolest moments ever?
Actually, yeah. So even the nonprofit is not legit yet,
Right.
but I had my first royalty check, from the book. And so my little girl and I got to go shopping for some kids. And so I let her pick out like the shoes she would want, all this. And my little girl Maggie goes, Mom. And I was like, yeah. She was like, this feels good right here. And I was like, it does, doesn't it? It's so cute. But I just like that they get to experience it too. But real quick, I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time, but when we're talking about like giving, like every teacher like wants to give their whole paycheck. Some of them
Mhm.
do, but when you have a teacher that's a single income,
Mhm.
like that's not much money.
Yeah,
And so that's one reason like we felt strongly about the nonprofit, is that like here is a way that any teacher can ask, like, hey, my kid needs
yeah,
socks, and like I just spent my last money to food for my own kids. So I think that was really important to us too.
I love that. Well,
Yeah.
Daisy, before we wrap up, there's one more question I want to ask, but I want to give you an opportunity for the people that are listening or watching. Tell them the name of your book, where they can find it, and a brief little what it's about.
Okay, so my book is called Rays of Sunshine. It is a 60-day Christian devotional. It is geared toward women, but men have bought it. And actually, a man that was an atheist contacted me, and a guy I know from growing up, and he was like, hey, I bought your book, I read your book, and now he's like back in the faith. So I mean, it's awesome. But you can get it on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com, and all of the proceeds for that book will go to Rays of Sunshine. So
I
we
love
can
that.
so you get like a dose of daily inspiration, happiness, and you also get to like buy kids some clothes or shoes,
Yeah.
whatever they need. So
Know that your money's going somewhere good. That's
yeah,
great.
it's a win-win.
Daisy, one question I always like to end these conversations on is, if there was one thing, and I know there's more than one, but if there was one thing you wish more people knew or understood, what would your one thing be?
And I think like we see this all the time on the internet. Just be nice. Like we don't know what people are going through. Like even me, like I'm smiling, I'm happy, but people don't know what they don't know if I'm going through something. Like we don't know. We don't know what these kids are going through. We don't know what the teachers are going through. We don't know what the administrators are going through. We don't know what the parents are going through. So I mean, just be nice.
I love it.
That would be my one thing.
Well, Daisy, you are amazing. We've met several times and spent time together. And what I love about you is everything coming out of your mouth is exactly who you are.
Yeah.
And I really respect and admire that about you, which is why I wanted to bring you on just to share some of your story with others. So thank you so much, not only for coming on here and telling your story, but just being an amazing human.
Thank you, Todd. Thanks for everything you do.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching to another episode of Tell Your Story. You can catch past episodes on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever. I put it everywhere. So go check out all the other great conversations with people. I hope that today, our conversation with Daisy and her telling some of her story has inspired you to get out there and tell some of yours. Because, like we say every week, every story matters.